Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me and my very special guest. She is one of Broadway's most beloved and versatile leading ladies. You know her from such shows as Jekyll and Hyde, Sideshow, James Joyce's The Dead, The Full Monty, Billy Elliot, Prince of Broadway, Picnic, and The Cher Show. And now this coming Sunday afternoon, March 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, she'll be in concert with Seth Rudetsky as part of his Seth concert series that streams right here at Broadway World. Please say hello to my friend, Emily Skinner.
Hello, Richie. I'm so glad to be with you.
This is so wild. I mean, first of all, you look sensational.
Well, thank you. I put on makeup for you. An amazing thing in the pandemic.
Totally. First off, how are you and where are you?
I am good. I'm actually in my apartment in New York on this lovely spring day. We got really lucky today in New York. Beautiful. That's where I am.
Have you been here during the whole pandemic?
I've been here for most of the pandemic. Most of it. I've also been a little bit out of town in June and a little bit out of town in November of last year, and then a little bit out of town this last month. But for the most part, I've been in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. We have too. I live in Hell's Kitchen, so I'm in Manhattan Plaza, so we've not moved out of here. So do you realize March 12th, it'll be a year since the New York theater shut down?
I know. I can't quite believe it. I was in rehearsal for a new show called Once Upon a Time, One More Time. That we were in rehearsal for our Chicago pre-Broadway tryout. And we've been 2 weeks in rehearsal, and then we all came to rehearsal. I believe it was the 13th, on Friday the 13th, and they said, and go home. It's all done. Pandemic is shutting everything down. So yeah, I remember. In a weird way, it feels like yesterday. It feels like this year went by like that, you know?
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, I lose days. It's like I post like, oh, I'm sitting with so-and-so like on Thursday, and Preston's like, no, you're sitting with them on Wednesday, or you're sitting with them on Friday. You know, if I don't have a schedule, I don't know. It seems like Groundhog Day. It seems like the year seems like 2 years. It seems like a month. It's just so surreal, right?
Yeah. And I know I'm not alone in this as a performer. This has been mentally and emotionally hard for everybody I know in the theater community. Actors, performers, everybody who works in and around the theater community, including you. It's been a weird year of ups and downs. Some days I'm okay. Some days I have to go into a fetal ball and suck my thumb, Weird times, weird year, but we're still here.
Oh, totally, we're still here. You know, with the light at the end of the tunnel, with everyone talking about getting the theater open again. Like, just tell me how excited you are. Like, what's going through your mind when you hear like, oh my God, it's going to happen soon? Like, what do you think it's going to look like when it comes back? What are you looking forward to the most with the theater returning?
Oh my gosh. I miss being in rooms with other actors. I miss being on stage in rehearsal rooms and commiserating and being creative with other actors. I miss it more than I ever thought possible. I think that's the thing I miss the most, honestly. And I miss the audiences. I really miss the audiences. There's nothing like, theater really is our last church for the arts. We all go into a same room together and watch the same thing and have the same experience. And there's nothing else like it. There's really nothing else like it in the world. So it's weird to have not had that for a whole year I spent my whole adult life experiencing that,
Well, you stayed a little busy during COVID because you are currently one of the stars of Simply Sondheim, which is the first production of Signature Features 2021 season. Now, it includes over 30 songs from Sondheim's canon and was filmed over the course of 3 days with multiple safety protocols in place. How exciting was that for you, and what was the whole experience like?
Very exciting, very exciting. And I got to tell you, I was so impressed with Signature Theater and how they did it, how safely they did it, how well they did it. It just goes to show, that really great theater can be produced and done well, for film, um, with relative ease if you're thoughtful about it. And I'm sort of hopeful that all this stuff that we figured out how to do with film theater content, that's now, rather than going away, when we get back to doing live stuff, that it will just be a new addition. It will be a fresh addition to the arsenal of how to get people into the arts, and interested in the arts. So it was great. It was a great experience. I hadn't sung. Oh my goodness, Richie, I hadn't sung in so long. We shot that at the beginning of November. Norm Lewis and I, we drove down to Virginia to film it the day that it was announced that Biden was officially elected. And it was a day in New York that everybody was like cheering in the streets, So it was a big day, and both of us sort of were looking at each other, going, "This is the first time I've actually felt like singing since March." So it was an intense weekend.
That was that Saturday. Was that Saturday?
Yep. Yeah. That Saturday.
So, I mean, you got makeup on, you got a dress on, you got all zhuzhed up, the lights are hitting you. It must have been so I don't know, cathartic and emotional for you, right?
It was weird for me. Norm has been actually doing lots of stuff over the course of this. I've only been doing stuff on Zoom, lots of Zoom readings and stuff, but I hadn't sung. I mean, stood on a stage and stood up in front of an orchestra and anything since March. So it was a little surreal. I remember sort of standing there as they were setting up cameras, going, "Do I still know how to do this? Oh my God, this is so weird." Just a weird sort of unnerving feeling. And then you pull it out and you go, "Oh, it's still there. Somehow it's still there."
Well, I want to tell everybody that it's sensational. I've already seen it. It is streaming now through March 26th in HD on Marquee TV and on demand streaming platforms. I want to ask you about Sondheim, because over the years, you have taken on some of the greatest Stephen Sondheim roles. You did Phyllis in Follies, Charlotte in A Little Night Music, The Witch in Into the Woods, Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd, just to name a few. What is it like living in the world of Stephen Sondheim and singing his songs?
It's the best there is. It's the best there is. He's probably the writer why that is the reason why I do what I do and why I keep wanting to do what I do. Because I think if I just stick it out longer, I can maybe I'll do some more Sondheim in my career. He's wonderful. He's wonderful to live inside. And as you know, I am relatively lazy. He does all the work for you. So you as an actor just have to stand there and deliver it and not get too in front of it. And it's so fantastic. So that's how I feel.
Have you had to sing for him?
Oh yeah, I sung for him on occasions. He's lovely and he's meticulous. Meticulous in a good way. He spent hours and hours and hours slaving and agonizing over choice of words and choices. Is it a half note? Is it a quarter note? Is it, so he wants his stuff sung in a certain way. And, you have to be sort of reverent about that, as you should, with something that's that well crafted,
Yeah. That's great. Well, this coming Sunday afternoon, March 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you'll be doing your virtual concert with Seth Rudetsky as part of his Seth Concert Series that streams right here at Broadway World. How excited are you to be doing this with Seth?
Oh, Seth is always a blast because it's always sort of, done on a wing and a prayer. Seth likes to be very, very spontaneous. So it's going to be spontaneous and God knows what's coming out. God knows what we'll talk about, but that's sort of a blast. It's going to be as fresh can be. And he's just so fun and so smart. I've known him. God, he was one of the first people I ever met in New York. I met him back in 1992. So I've known him that long. So it's, it's always nice to sing with a dear friend.
Because I've had just about everybody on who has done this, and it's so different for everybody. They're like, I can't believe you do it, but they're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what he's going to ask me to do, like off the fly, and I'm like, I've got to go with it, and it's like it's sort of a conversation and songs, and it's like, oh, is he going to remember, my first high school production that I did of so-and-so, and like, do I know the lyrics?
Totally. It's both sort of terrifying and a ball, because you don't know what it's going to be. Yeah. So, you got buckle your seatbelt.
Well, we can't wait. So what are some of the songs, without giving too much away, like, do you have favorite composers? Are there some shows that the fans can expect to hear you sing, or have you finalized everything?
I mean, we're still kind of thinking about it, but he likes to do things that you've done in your career. So it'll be some stuff that I've done and done with him. So I think it'll be a good mix of stuff from my career and stuff that I like singing and stuff that he likes singing. I think we're gonna maybe do a duet. So we'll see.
I like that. Oh, the fans watching this around the world are being, oh my gosh, a duet. I wonder if it's going to be a connected duet.
Well, you will just have to wait and see. The magic of the internet.
I love that. So what part of your house have you turned into your stage or your theater? Like, what are you going to be using?
Oh God. I live in a 1-bedroom, so it's like, oh God, where do I do anything? I'm just gonna do it in my living room. You'll get to see, my living room. You probably get to see my cat. My cat will do some drive-by shark things, I guess I have to vacuum probably, so you don't know exactly how filthy I generally live in. Yeah, you'll see my living room. I used to go see Barbara Cook in concert a lot. It always felt like, even though you were in a cabaret space, it always felt like you were sitting in your living room with her. It's always sort of very casual, very off the cuff. That's what this is going to be.
But see, that's the great thing. Great singers have already told me, it's like, I don't care if I'm playing Carnegie Hall or if I'm playing, the Green Room 42 or a smaller club. They're like, it's always my living room.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what you want to feel like. You want people to feel at home and feel comfortable, and you're having a joint experience.
Yeah. Have you chosen your outfit yet for Sunday? Are you going cad?
Oh, Richie, this is making me feel so pressured. I haven't thought about anything.
I'm not trying to make you pressured, but the point is, you have to. Everybody realize, not only are you the performer, you're the stage manager, the lighting designer, the set designer. I mean, seriously, God. It's you and your cat. So I'm just trying to figure out.
Oh, I know. Listen, I'm gonna play it by ear. I may play it in my pajamas. I'm gonna wake up on Sunday and see how I feel. I may deck out in a bedazzled gown. I may be in my sweats. Who knows? Watch and see.
Yeah, because everyone's done everything and everything in between. Everyone's done right. They said, I have leggings on, I have a beautiful top, or I'm just casual, or some have worn
I'm in my underwear. Right.
Yeah, totally. Right. And I remember asking Jeremy Jordan, he's like, Richard, I may not wear slacks. You may just have whatever. It's like, because this is our new now. It's like, many people have said, you don't want to see the left of my frame. You don't want to see the right of my frame right now. Like, I'm very comfortable sitting where I am now, and this is what I'm comfortable with.
That's exactly right. That's right. Yep.
Have you had to do a lot of self-tapes during this?
Not a lot, but enough now that I feel like I know kind of what I'm doing, kind of. But all of us have been on this sort of massive tech learning curve, learning how to do that stuff that we never thought we would have to do. I never did a self-tape in my life before this pandemic. So I've been on a, technical learning curve, and it's good. It's making my brain work.
Well, it's interesting, as performers, from being in third grade or in high school into professional, you never know where you're going to do a show or how you're going to do a show. So I think that creative people are very adaptable. They're like,
I think you're right.
Like, I have to admit, I'm going to do a Zoom concert. I'll learn how to do that, and I'll do that, which you're doing. It doesn't matter where you do it, but you think, I can do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And honestly, as someone who's my age, Richie, it's good for my brain to have to learn new things, to go, you got to learn how to do this. You got to remain flexible, and you got to sort of go with the flow, and it's good for you,
But it must feel really great to be putting a show together, to be singing again, even if it's streaming, which is wonderful, is what it is. It must feel so great to say, I'm putting a show together.
Yeah. It does. Although it's a little weird to sort of, stand in my apartment with a microphone, singing into a microphone in my apartment, but my cat's enjoying it. He stands over there and he judges silently and rates me, and
Or
it's
leaves the room,
interesting.
or
Or
goes
leaves
to
the
the
room.
kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but I love
Exactly.
what Seth's team has done, because I'm sure you got a package of all this stuff you're supposed to download into your computer or whatever else for
Yeah.
sound and all of this stuff, because Kelly O'Hara kicked this series off, and Kelly said the first one was like our internet would go out and it was like, but no one cared because everybody was in this together learning this new curve. So it was like we'd come back and we'd sing it again or whatever, and then she's done it again and she's been like, wow, we've all been down this incredible road together.
Right.
But like, this is like you growing up in your bedroom singing into your hairbrush, right? When you were growing up or something.
That's exactly what it feels like. It feels like when I was 8 years old and I would stand in front of the mirror and pretend I was, I don't know, on solid gold or, whatever. It's very much like that. Having reverted to childhood so much in this pandemic anyway, this is just a further extension of that.
But it must also make you feel great because, you have fans all around the country and all around the world, and they can all just by buying a ticket, they can all watch you in the safety of their own space all at the same time, that normally wouldn't be able to fly in. That must make you feel so wonderful.
It actually does. And in that regard, I've never done anything like that. And I have some relatives who've never seen me on a stage, who live far away. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think, oh, that's nice. They'll get to, I already have like an aunt and a cousin who's like, I'm so excited to see you finally. And I was like, oh, that's great.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing. And it's yet another reason why I think I hope that theaters who are have been doing film content are realizing that they can keep doing that once theater comes back and do the live performance in addition to the film stuff, and they'll continue to reach an even broader audience and find even more of a subscriber base for those regional theaters that are doing that, and that Broadway will find more of an audience for the things that are going to be seen. It just creates more audience.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, you're also offering a special VIP sound check ticket Sunday afternoon at 12 o'clock. Now, I have watched all of these. These are hilarious. Well, most people go into a theater, the music plays lightly, the curtain is down, they sit down, then the curtain goes up and the magic begins. You're giving everybody a behind the scenes look at your living room and at 12 noon with Seth. I mean, they're really a lot of fun, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like with you and Seth, with his sense of humor. Pull it all together. They're really a lot of fun. Are you looking forward to that?
Oh God, God knows what it's going to be. I'm just probably going to laugh my way through all of this, and I'm sure he will too.
But they're really a lot of fun, Emily. So have a great time. It's just taking your fans behind the scenes. Well, I want to tell everybody once again, Emily Skinner will be live in concert with Seth Rudetsky this Sunday afternoon, March 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then there'll be a replay Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And there's a special VIP sound check ticket, which will be hilarious, believe me, at 12 noon. All tickets are $28.50. There's also now a student discount that is now available for all shows announced in the Seth concert series, but you have to be a registered student with a EDU email address by using it and putting in the code student when signing up for a BroadwayWorld account. This is a really big deal.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah, because there's a lot of these kids, are at home, homeschooling, and it's like, wow, here I go. Watch the Seth concert series. I can see Emily Skinner, So the series, of course, is produced by Mark Cortali. It is sponsored by BroadwayWorld and StreamYard. Tickets are available at Broadway World Events and, of course, SethConcerts.com. You just Google Emily Skinner. You'll find it everywhere. The page will come up. Emily, I want to go back to the beginning. Growing up, I've never asked you this. Where did your love for theater and what were your earliest creative outlets when you were very young and growing up? What were they?
Oh, wow. Well, the weird story about me is I was that little kid who's really, really, really hyper. I was that kid who you go, oh my God, please put that kid on Ritalin. Oh my God, what's up with that kid? I was so hyper and sort of out of control and unfocused in kindergarten. They were going to hold me back and not pass me on to first grade because I couldn't sit down and be with the class and focus. And at some point towards the end of that year, my genius kindergarten teacher said to me, okay, Emily, you're going to get 15 minutes every day to entertain the class. And then when that is over, you have to sit down and be with the class for the rest of the school day. And that was the kind of the thing that opened Pandora's box for me, because I would go home after school every day and go, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? And I would, I would lip sync to Jackson 5 records, and I would do puppet shows. And then at some point I ran out of ideas. And so I started listening to my mother's Broadway cast album collection. And that was my introduction to Broadway. And my mom had all these iconic golden age of Broadway, West Side Story in Oklahoma, and like everything in between, these albums, because she had a mother who loved Broadway and grew up and listening to this and going to see it. And that was my first exposure to it. But I would take this is what's great. I would take those records to class in kindergarten. I wouldn't sing. I would lip sync to them. So I would, lip sync to Evita or lip sync to, Jesus Christ Superstar, God knows what. Those kids must have been like, what the hell? Those poor kids in my class. So, about 6 weeks into this, the kindergarten teacher called my mother and said, I think you should just know, I'm pretty sure you have a performer on your hands. You might want to do something with that information. And my mom, put me in ballet class and let me audition for a little great performing arts school that was starting in my community. And I started to audition for a local community, all driven by me, not by my mother. My mother was not is not a stage mother at all. But that was sort of my beginning.
That is great. So your 15 minutes turned into, oh no, I have to do 2 sides of this cast album. I did the same thing. I think we all had the same upbringing when you just have parents' record collection of Broadway cast albums and you say, I'm putting the whole show on. Side 1 and side 2.
That's right. Audra McDonald and I have a similar story, in fact, that we were both the same sort of hyper little girl who found this as an outlet early on. It's interesting. I don't think it's an uncommon story with a lot of performers.
Yeah. I think the first time you and I met was for the original production of Alan Menken and Lynn Aron's A Christmas Carol in the rehearsal room. And I remember how beautiful that opening night party was. That was one of the most glamorous opening night parties I think I had ever been to.
Yeah, it was.
You, of course, had played Emily, of course, who was the young love interest for, young Scrooge. I mean, what a team you got to work with. You got to sing A Place to Go Home by Alan Menken and Lynn Aron's and work with Mike Ockrent and Susan Stroman. I mean, favorite memory of that. What was that like for you? Because I consider that your debut, your New York debut. What was that like for you?
Oh, gosh. I'll tell you, that show, I met through that show, I met some of my dearest, closest friends who are still my dearest, closest friends to this day. It was that experience. So that experience, for that reason, is very special to me. It was an amazing experience. That creative team was figuring that show out in that space, that ginormous, Madison Square Garden space. And Tony Walton had done the sets, and William Ivy Long had done the costumes, and it was great to be involved in something that they were so excited about. They were really excited to bring that to life too. So, yeah, it was a joyous memory.
Yeah, such a big deal. When I was just like looking over your stuff again, I was like, oh my God, that's where I first met her. And I remember that so vividly. And everybody wanted that to be there every Christmas, which it came back for so many years. And I think you did 3 seasons. Didn't you do 3 years?
I did the first 3 years. Yeah.
Well, you were superb. Just had a fabulous time. Well, then you got to make your Broadway debut in the Frank Wildhorn musical, Jekyll and Hyde. Now, I know you started in the ensemble, but you were also the understudy to Emma and, of course, to Linda Etter's Lucy. Now,
that's right.
I want to ask you about your actual debut, but did you sort of go on for Linda Etter during previews when she got laryngitis?
I did. I did.
Tell what happened.
There was a lot of smoke and fog in that show, and I think Linda had a reaction to that in the previews, and they hadn't built understudy costumes for me yet. We were still in the preview period, and Linda's like 5'10". I would never have, I would have been dwarfed by her costumes. It'd been so long, so they couldn't put me on. So what they had to do was, I did my track in the ensemble, and Linda went on and played the scenes as her. And then whenever she had to sing something, I would run off stage to a mic on the side of the stage, a handheld mic, and I would sing her, and she would lip sync to me. Which, in retrospect, I think that's insane. That poor audience, and I don't think they announced it either, because they were making that decision like 20 minutes before the start of the show. It was crazy. I don't even think they had time to, stuff flyers or make the announcement or whatever. That audience must have been like, what the what? And at the end of the show, we all came out and took our bows. We all came out. And Linda came out and took her bow, and she pulled me out with her and made me take a bow with her and was like, this was my voice. And I'm sure the audience was like, oh, now we get it.
This is like the best of Singing in the Rain meets like, lip syncing to your cast albums in kindergarten.
Totally. But boy, Linda Eder is a real class act. She was a really fantastic woman.
What a way to make your Broadway debut. First is like, first floor from the left or whatever. You'd all made one, you had all these different tracks. And then you were like, but I'm also singing the lead tonight.
Yeah. Going, oh my God, this is weird. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, you and Alice Ripley then took Broadway by storm. Critics and audiences alike, everybody fell in love with the two of you when you took on the roles of Daisy and Violet Hilton in one of my all-time favorite musicals, Sideshow. I mean, I used to go to Sideshow once a week. I love that show. How life-changing was that role and that show for you?
Very, very life-changing. I think it was, life-changing for a lot of reasons. Life-changing because it was the thing that both Alice and I sort of became known theater, performers off of that because of that show. Also, it was the first thing that I've been a part of where I got to be really part of the developmental process for that show. And that's so exciting for a performer.
Yeah.
I was involved with that show from the very early readings of it. And to see it change and morph, and for them to morph it around the people who they had been working with was really, really exciting and interesting. And I've been a part of, other development process for other shows, but I've never been involved in one where I felt so intrinsic to the process. So it was really exciting.
Do you remember that incredible Broadway rock audience, that first performance when you all sang on that stage? I mean, how
were you there? Were you at that one?
Yes, I was.
Oh my God! Wow.
Do you remember that first with an audience and how electrifying that was when you all sang that final number? It was like it took the roof off I call it the 46th Street Theater still. I mean, incredible.
It's funny. So many of my memories of that show, because that was such a that show was really intense for both Alice and I, not only vocally, but because if we were not on stage, we were having these mad 30-second full costume, full wig, full shoe, full everything changes and being pushed back on stage. There was no time to breathe. There was no time to take a sip of water, nothing. From first act to second act, we did that, at intermission. So that show was like running. It's like you got ready for the marathon every day. It was like running a marathon every day. So I think in retrospect, I don't know if I was able in that moment to take a breath and take that in fully, really, in retrospect, and now I do, but that was my first sort of shot out of the cannon thing, and it was so full force. I think I was just sort of hanging on for the ride, trying to do it as best as I could.
Because you're not
Yeah.
machines, but the point is you were doing
No.
8 shows a week, and it was like, wow. It
Yeah.
was like watching Jennifer Holliday in Dreamgirls or something, or Hugh Jackman or Bette Midler. It's these performances that you're like, how do they do what they do? And you don't really know the heart prep that goes into what you two had to do in that show. But just thinking back to that show, that was such an incredible, incredible time, and you were all so brilliant. Everybody connected to that production.
Thank you. It was an amazing experience and an amazing group of people to be with, and yeah, we're all still very close, which is nice too. We're all bonded.
Well, no pun intended, but you and Alice were joined at the hip, and of course you were years afterwards. I mean that seriously. I mean, you toured together. You created 4 incredible albums together. So anybody who's watching, if you haven't gotten Duets and Unsuspecting Hearts and Raw at Town Hall and Unattached, they're brilliant albums. They were brilliant live concerts. I mean, you solo, of course, are brilliant too. But I love that the two of you traveled together and did these shows and recorded these albums. What was it like sharing the stage and working together, the two of you?
We're a fantastic study in contrast, Alice and I. It's an interesting thing that we played sisters, and that we played sisters who were alike, because in a weird way we really are sort of Daisy and Violet like, and that personality wise and approach to work and approach to life and outlook on life, we're really different. And yet when we come together, it's a really kind of wonderful thing. Our voices have the ability to sound alike, but we also have really different voices. And I think that's part of what's nice about us on stage together, singing together. We don't have, and we both separately have very interesting voices that don't, in my opinion, don't sound like everybody else on Broadway. There's a lot of homogeneousness, in my opinion, with sort of female singers all have a sort of very particular sound, and neither Alice nor I have ever sounded like that. So I don't know. I think that's part of what's interesting about us.
Yeah, just beautiful. I listened to the albums again. Anybody, if you want to just go to any streaming service, and these albums are terrific. They're really sensational. You then got to create the role of Mary Jane in something that I adored, Richard Nelson's stunning musical of James Joyce's The Dead. Working with that stellar cast must have been just amazing for you.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things I've ever been a part of in New York. I love doing that. I love going and experiencing that show every day because it was so alive. It was so alive. The whole piece took place at a party in Dublin on Christmas Eve. And so it was scripted, but there were also points in it that were completely improvised every single day. And we never knew what they were quite going to be. And Christopher Walken was the sort of lead in it, sort of narrating, carrying it. And he in particular loved spontaneity. He loved when understudies would go on and mix it up. And he was constantly trying to keep it fresh and throw things in the mix and make us laugh. And he had these big, deep pockets, and he would pull things out of his pockets. Every day was different. Like one day it would be like pickles, and he would eat pickles. Or it would be like peanuts, and he would shell them and throw them at you. Or just random things. So I love doing that because I think it's the most alive Broadway musical I've ever been a part of.
It's funny that you say that, because I went numerous times to see that during the run, and it was every time I went, it was different.
Yeah.
Like you said, but
it was different every day. Yeah.
It's the aliveness of that show was something, I don't know. It was just this beautiful combination that Richard Nelson brought together. And I mean, just the creative team you got to work with on that too must have been amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's such a sadness. That show was never recorded.
Yeah.
That show never got a cast album, and the score was beautiful. It was written by a fantastic Irish composer, and I always sort of think, shows that don't get cast albums kind of fade away into the ether, which is why it's so important to try to get an archive, even if you have to scrape up the money yourself, creative teams to do it, because it means the show will have a life. the reason Sideshow has the life that it has. We only ran, you know, three and a half months, but that show has sort of gone out into the mass consciousness because of the cast album that we did. You know?
Well, let's put this out into the world, the Broadway world today. Let's put it, somebody should put it together where you can bring as most of the cast who is still with us or whatever, bring them back together, and someone please record this. This is such a beautiful show. It's such a beautiful show. And I mean, to have you all do this would be really great to have even this many years later. It would be that richer to have, don't you think?
Yes, it would. And I'm sure Chris Walken would love to do it.
But Chris Walken, if you're watching, let's put this all together. That's great. You know, then there was your beautiful Vicki Nichols. I loved her in the feel-good musical, The Full Monty. I mean, how much fun was it doing that show? Because everybody who worked on that show said they just had the time of their life doing that.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a great group of people. You know, Jack O'Brien and Jerry Mitchell. I mean, yeah, it was just a great group. We tried it out at the Old Globe in San Diego first, and then we did it on Broadway. And my primary memory of that show is that I was doing that when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And we shut, when that happened, obviously we shut the show down for a couple of days. All of the Broadway shows, you know, stopped. And then it was either that Thursday or Friday, we were all called and said, come on in, we're doing the show tonight. And I remember thinking, are you kidding me? We're going to do this. This city is in shock. The city is, we're still trying to, you know, figure out what happened and be of service and donate blood at the Red Cross. We all went in and did that show. And one of the great things that the city of New York did in that moment was they bought blocks of tickets to all the Broadway shows to keep Broadway alive, because, you know, Broadway relies on tourism and people weren't coming to New York in that moment. So they gave those blocks of tickets to New York firefighters and New York Police Department. And so for a period of time, we had audiences of those people and their families. And that was really a wonderful thing.
I had totally forgotten about it. New York State should do that now with getting Broadway back again and give it to, like, you know, the first responders and the fabulous and people who are on the front line and bring them back to start it all off. That's terrific. I totally forgot that. You're right.
Yeah.
You know,
it was an amazing thing, and that's a very good idea.
Yeah. And then, of course, there was Lincoln Center Theater's glorious production of Dinner at 8 when you took on the role of Kitty Packard. I mean, that Jean Harlow made infamous. You made her your own. I mean, you know, in Barry Gutierrez's glorious production. And you got to play opposite the late, great Marion Seldes. I mean,
oh, yes.
How wonderful was that? Yeah.
Oh, it was great. That was an amazing cast. The late, great Marion Seldes and the late, great Kevin Conway, who just passed away last year, who became one of my dearest friends. It was wonderful. And Jerry Gutierrez, who directed that production. It was beautiful. It was at the Vivian Beaumont, and the stage of I can't talk today. The Vivian Beaumont is so large. It's such a large stage that often the set has to be the star, because the set has to be so large to fill up that space. And I remember we had a killer set. I mean, just an exquisite set that morphed into all this stuff. And Katie Zuber did our costumes, these like exquisite period costumes. And I had a crazy little dumb Pekingese that was in every scene with me that I think had been lobotomized. I had a lot of fun and a lot of weird memories from that show, but it was a blast.
I just love that everything you've done is different. When you look at your resume, nothing repeats itself. It's all different. And that's what I love about what you do. That's why I called you versatile in the opening, because everything you do is different. You know, then you're very welcome for that. Then there's Billy Elliot, because didn't Stephen Daldry handpick you to be the first American actress to play Mrs. Wilkinson?
I did, yeah, I did.
I adore Stephen Daldry.
Oh, he's lovely. He's lovely and smart and funny and incredibly insightful. Yeah, it was wonderful to work with him.
Yeah, what was that like, though, going into the world of Billy Elliot, and that was a monster of a show. And the role, everybody falls in love with your character.
It was fun because I actually got to do it with two companies. I opened the first national tour of it in Chicago, and then they moved me into the Broadway production. So I got to do it with two different companies. So over the course of the 2-year period that I did it, I worked with 14 different boys who played Billy over that time, 14 different young men, which is, I think about that now and I'm like, oh my God, because that role, they were all on the cusp of adolescence, or sort of right in the heart of it. And as soon as they would, there was no like growing micro. It's when you're an adolescent, you're a boy. One day you're this, and then the next day you've grown 3 feet and your voice has changed. It's like it happens like that. So it was always sort of catching them at a very sort of transformative moment in their lives. Those guys, That was where I got my nickname from Billy Elliot. People call me Skins.
Yeah.
And that was from those boys. Those boys I worked with in Chicago started calling me Skins. So.
Oh my God! I was going to ask you, but I love that. See, you got it. But I mean, I remember the 3 boys that I got to know really well in New York, and I've met them years later. I mean, they've all gone on to great stuff. I mean, David's playing Bernardo in the film version of West Side Story.
I know, and he's going to be amazing.
Oh. And then you realize how old we get when I'm like, no, I only interviewed you 3 years ago. They're like, no. Or the Matildas too. The Matildas are all like married with kids now. And I'm like, no, you can't.
I know. I feel 1,000 years old. I know. They're still like little people to me.
Yeah, totally. Well, then you got to play the role of Adelaide, the diva mouse, in the Great American Mousical, directed by Julie Andrews up at the Norma Terrace at Goodspeed. I mean, seriously, that had to have been a big pinch me moment for you, Julie Andrews. Like, what was that like?
It was, exactly what you think it would be like. She is exactly who you think she is. Like what she is, that's exactly who she is. Sometimes people put forward, they've got their thing they do, and then there's somebody else. She's exactly that person. What she puts forward is exactly who she is in real life. She's great, and she was a really insightful director and fun to work with, and got to hear a lot of great stories from her, and it was fun.
It must have been, because I got to interview her when she had done The Boyfriend. She directed The Boyfriend at Bay Street, and they were like, Richard, do you want to sit with her for 20 minutes? And I was like, Mary Poppins was my first film, and then my second film was with The Sound of Music. So, I mean, just to sit with her, and like you said, she is that. I mean,
Right.
Sounds like that, she's that, and you're like, and you have it all pulled together, but in the back of your mind, you're like, oh my God, I'm sitting with Mary Poppins. I'm sitting with Maria von Trapp, who was my whole entire childhood. And you're keeping it together, but you're like, it's a surreal moment.
Yeah.
And like you're being directed by her too. You're like, oh my gosh, these, cast albums you listen to, My Fair Lady or The Sound of Music or whatever, and you realize, oh my God, I'm in a room with her and she's directing me. A show that I don't know a lot about, but I had a friend see this on the road, was the Ghost Brothers of Darkland County. So it's the Stephen King, John Mellencamp, and T-Bone Burnett musical. You had done a 21-city tour, and it was a combination of like acting and singing. And what was that?
It was a concert tour. It was a rock and roll concert tour that had been produced by John Mellencamp's record company. So we did it a la rock and roll concert tour style. We did it. We had rock and roll tour buses, and we did that whole schedule. And that was part of the reason I agreed to do it, because I wanted to have that experience. and it was fun. But I came off that, we did it for like 6 weeks, and I came off the road. I was like, people do this for a lifetime? Oh my God. You have all my respect, rock and roll people, because I'm trashed. I need to go have lie down for like 19 weeks in a row now. But it was fun.
It was a real rock and roll tour you were on.
Yeah.
That's a chapter of your book. That's like
I'm telling you. You know it.
But then you had the honor of being directed with, I'm just going to say, the greatest, Hal Prince, in his last show on Broadway, Prince of Broadway, I mean, which I adored and saw it many, many times. How special was that time with Hal, just being with him and being directed by him. He adored you because I did one of his last major sit down interviews in front of a live audience, and we talked about you before we went on. He just worshiped the ground you walked on. And I mean, to me, he's the greatest. So I just wanted to ask you what it was like for you to work with Hal Prince.
You just said it. He was the greatest, and it has been the honor of my career to have worked with him, to have known him as a director and as a friend. He became a dear friend over the years that I got to work with him, and he was very paternal towards me too, which I always found very moving. I always sort of, was asking about my life and how I was doing and my relationships and my family. He was a tremendous person, and the last class act, I call him. He's really the last class act. Yeah, I miss him every day. Yeah. I have pictures of him here in my apartment, and I miss him every single day.
There was no one like him. Like I said, he was Broadway. I mean, he invented so many things. I mean, when you look at his what he gave to Broadway, I mean, he literally reinvented Sondheim, the two of them together with reinventing where they went down the road. I mean, just everybody, he just his mind and like the way he would work with people, like, Candor and Ebb doing Flora the Red Menace, and then it wasn't a big hit. And opening night, he said, come to the office tomorrow. We'll work on the next thing. I have a book for you. The Berlin stories. I mean, who does that? No one does that now.
He was the wonderful thing about Hal was that his spectrum was so broad. You talk about me, I'm so different from show to show, which is fantastic. He never repeated himself. Yeah. You look at all his body of work, and nothing is like the next. Everything is so different, and it's because he was just so interested in so many things, and social ideas, and the world, and being creative in general. He really was a force. Really was a force, and put such good stuff in the world. I think we all owe him a debt of how much he helped foster into the world in the Broadway world.
Because like I said, he just loved everything connected to the theater. The stage doorman, he ushers, he loved everybody connected to the theater. That was the world he lived in. That's why, so I just know that you went to Japan first with the first incarnation when I first interviewed you all before you left for Japan.
Oh, and then I forgot that. Right. Oh, Richie, my God.
I was so honored just to go into that rehearsal studio, because I was like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to be in this room with all these people.
We were rehearsing in that teeny tiny little room. Oh my God.
And then when
Tony Asbeck sweating on you. Oh my God. I
loved everything about it. Like, bring it on. Then you got to do Transport Group's brilliant production of Picnic, where you played Rosemary. I mean, you've gotten so many like accolades and all this stuff. I mean, the critics always fall in love with you, but specifically for this, I love that production because I think there was only like 80 people in the audience. It was the William Inge sort of thing they did. And it's such a beautiful role. And it's such a role you can fall into, like doing the same. You made Rosemary your own. What did you enjoy the most about taking on that role in a play, that role of Rosemary?
I love that production because it was so stripped down. There was literally no set. I mean, we did it in a space that had it was just chairs, And so all there was the text and the actors. That's it. And you can only do that kind of thing with material that's really good.
Yeah.
You really, and Picnic is a gem, and we had fantastic actors doing it. And Jack Cummings, boy, he really knows how to mine a classic text for every single thing it's worth. And he really, really did. That show was, Rosemary is a really wonderful part, and I've seen it played a number of different ways. But what I sort of focused on in that role is that she's so scared of revealing her true self, so she puts on this front all of the time, and I think that's what we all do. We do that because it's our mask towards the world, but to have to sort of strip off that mask in the middle of the performance was really interesting thing. And I only could have done that in a, with people I felt very safe with. I got to work with dear John Cariani, who's marvelous, and one of my dear friends to this day. So yeah, it was a very, very, very special experience.
I
Yeah.
love Transport Group. I love Jack Cummings III. I love everything he does. But giving a big shout out to Jack because it's a fabulous. But he's such a humble guy too. He's so lovely. I've known Jack
He's
forever.
marvelous.
But he's just a great director. Like I said, he mines the text, and it makes it so much easier for actors when you say, oh, when you work with a director like that. But you were brilliant in that, just so you know. Really brilliant.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you.
Well, Broadway fell in love with you all over again when you played Cher's mom in the Cher show. And tell me how much fun that was, and just being around Cher. The real Cher.
The real Cher. Well, as somebody who, as a child, watched the Cher show on TV, it was certainly a full circle experience. Growing up, if you had told me you're going to play Cher's mom on Broadway when I was, 5 years old, watching her on TV, I would have just been like, "Are you insane?" She was wonderful. She was wonderful to me, wonderful to work with. Was so kind to me. Told me some wonderful stories about her mom, and she sent me flowers for my birthday, sent me flowers for Mother's Day. She's another class act. And I've met at this point a lot of celebrities over the course of time. I'm not wowed by celebrities in a different way than Julie Andrews. She exactly what you see is exactly who she is. Yeah. She has no self-edit whatsoever, which is kind of wonderful. But rare to find a celebrity who, like her, has grown up on camera. Usually you kind of foster a veneer, you foster your thing, and then you take it off when the camera's not rolling. And who she is who she is. And what comes out of her mouth in the moment is what comes out. And I kind of really like that about her because it's rare.
Yeah. But you're talking about mining material. You just would come out there and like walk away with the show and then go back and then come out again. Seriously, I just loved watching you do your thing. And then your little guest star as Lucille Ball was even.
Oh yeah, my brief cameo as Lucy.
Great clothes. Bob Mackie. Running around. That had to be great just going to the fittings. I've known Bob forever, and Joe, of course. We have to give a big shout out to Bob and Joe. Yes. But going for a fitting with Bob Mackie, that must have been like, oh my God, here's another one of those pinch me moments.
He's the loveliest. And Joe, his associate, is the loveliest too. And I've been to, as an actress, so many times I've been to costume fittings where the costumer looks around, walks around you and goes, "Oh, what am I going to do with you?" And, and Bob makes you feel so good in a costume fitting. And I used to stand there and say, "Oh, now I get it. Now I understand why you are Bob Mackie, because you know how to make women feel really good about themselves. That is your secret, So I just adore him."
Oh yeah, but it's like not only did you get to play Cher's mom and get to meet Cher, you got to meet Bob Mackie and get a fitting and get Bob Mackie clothes. So it's like
so many riches.
Were you able to keep anything from the Cher show? Were you able to keep anything? Bob, I hope you're not watching. Joe McFate, turn this off.
No, all of those clothes were packed up. I think they were planning. I don't know what's going to happen now with with the pandemic. They were going to go out on tour. So I'm sure most of those clothes were going to be refitted, recycled for the tour.
Well, I see you wearing one of those in your next nightclub act. So I'm watching this on the Cher show. I think it'd be fabulous to wear one of those. What are you looking forward to the most about Sunday's show? We're going to go back to this for a second.
I'm looking forward to having a good time with Seth. That's what I'm looking forward to. This whole pandemic experience is I think for all of us, it's been like, how do we find the joy? How do we find the laughs? How do we connect with other people and make ourselves feel good and make them feel good? So that's what Sunday's about for me.
Yeah. My final question for you is, what have you learned about yourself during the pandemic?
Oh God, what have I learned about
It's a
myself?
biggie.
It is a biggie. Um, I feel like all the things that I've learned about myself are things that I knew before, but I don't think I gave as much attention to as I do now. I have deepened all of my friendships. I've
Yeah.
deepened my, you know, this pandemic sort of, I think because we had to kind of bubble in this pandemic and become very thoughtful and very safe about who we let into we can be around.
Yeah.
I have my friends that I have bubbled with. They're like my family now. They are truly my family in a way that I feel more I feel more supported now in that regard than I think I did before the pandemic. So that's been a beautiful thing that's happened. You know?
I love that, being supported. I
Yeah,
think we all have. I think when it
yeah,
finally does open up again, it's going to be so great. Like, I've always been a hugger and a kisser, or whatever else. I've always been a heart person. So I've missed just physical
yeah,
contact with people who I love. So I
yeah.
cannot wait to have that again, and I think we're all going to be so connected, as opposed to not worrying about a phone going off or a text message or whatever else. I think we're all going to be living in the moment of actually having someone in front of you that you can actually talk to in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too. I think so too. I don't think this is an experience that's going to, when it's over, it's just going to go away. I
Yeah.
think our cells are different now.
Yeah.
We're different people. This has changed us. Maybe in some good ways. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Beautifully put. Well, once again, Emily will be live in concert with Seth Rudetsky this Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with a replay Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And there's a very special VIP sound check ticket that will be happening at 12 noon with Emily, Seth, and her cat.
Thank you.
At 12 noon. What's your cat's name?
My cat's name is Henri.
Oh, I love that. Henri. And Henri will be there.
Henri.
Henri will probably make an appearance
He'll
too.
show up. He'll show up and judge. Yeah.
All the
Oh yeah.
tickets are $28.50. Like I said, there's a student discount available now at Broadway World. This series is once again produced by Mark Cortali. It's sponsored by Broadway World and StreamYard. Tickets are available at Broadway World events at SethConcerts.com. This hour flew by really fast, Emily.
I'm so glad I got to talk to you. It's a blast to see your face. You look
Like
so good.
like I said, I have missed you, and like I said, it takes me back to 1994 in that rehearsal
Ah,
room
my
of you. And I've been
God.
there for, I think, everything you've done in New York, for all the wonderful things you've done for the Actors Fund. I mean, Best Little Whorehouse, and all the wonderful things you've done. I've been there for all the great events you've done. You give
Wow.
back to the community. You've done so much, but
As do you, my friend. As do you.
it's just been
Yeah.
so nice to catch up with you. Everybody stay safe. Join us Sunday for Emily Skinner in concert. Stay safe, wear a mask, and we'll all see you soon. Take care, everyone.